All right, everyone. Well, welcome. I'm Katherine Gunya. This is Inbox to Income. It's smart email strategies for real business growth. So obviously we're going to be talking all things email. We're going to be going through everything from like data compliance and data collection all the way to like post sending, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, and A/B testing and things like that. So we're going to try to cover the whole gamut. I'm going to try to get through it in like 45 to 50 minutes. If that doesn't happen and we run up on time and I don't have time to do a Q&A session, I am planning to stick around here for like 30 minutes or so post session. So if you do have any questions or want me to look at anything or anything like that, I will be here to answer those. So a little bit about me. I am the CRM and marketing manager at Digital Retail Partners. So from a practical standpoint, I do CRM, which is customer relationship management software, and marketing automation platform implementation. Digital Retail Partners is a Klaviyo partner and a HubSpot partner. So those are the two main platforms that I work in. I do have some limited experience in like Brevo and MailChimp and Constant Contact and things like that. So all of the screenshots you're going to be seeing from within a platform today, those are all going to be Klaviyo screenshots. I also do like platform data and usage audits, so I can take a look at like what you're doing, what you're not doing, how clean your data is, things like that. Do a lot of client training. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the job, as well as what is relevant for today, email and SMS marketing, as well as marketing automation. So I have a couple questions for you all before we actually hop into the presentation. Just show of hands, who here already does some form of email marketing? Okay, everybody. Great. This is more of an actual question. What platforms do you all use?
Oh, I was using Constant Contact.
Okay.
And then I think here at HAYVN they do MailChimp.
Okay. So
I use Squarespace.
Squarespace?
Yep.
Okay.
High level.
Okay.
HubSpot.
HubSpot. Love HubSpot. All right, and then what is your biggest challenge when it comes to email marketing? Does anyone have anything that like sticks out as a particular pain point?
I just feel like I never know how much to do or not to do.
Okay.
How many times do I send? Am I bothering people or is it good? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm always weighing that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Open rates and conversion rates.
Open rates and conversion rates. Okay, cool.
That too.
That is a big
That
one.
too.
All right, so what we're going to talk about today is, like I said, pretty much try to cover the full breadth of everything. So everything from building your list. So we're going to start looking at the different types of data that you can acquire, strategies for data acquisition, both legal and inbox provider compliance. We're going to talk about tone and templates and campaign content. We're going to talk about different sending strategies, so segmentation, automation, as well as when you should send and how to avoid inbox fatigue. And then finally, we're going to talk about how to measure whether or not your content is effective, and what you can do to try to increase that. So different positive, negative, and neutral metrics, as well as talking about A/B testing and maintaining data integrity over time. All right, so let's start off with the different types of data. So there are, for email marketing purposes, there are really four main types of data. There's zero party, which is information that your customer has directly given to you. These are most often like surveys or form fills, reviews, communication preferences, things like that. There's first party data, which oftentimes goes along with zero party data. This is information that's collected directly from your customer, but not necessarily from them like directly giving it to you. It's like information that you can collect on them based off of their behavior. So like if you have a retail store and they buy something from you, that purchase history, that's first party data. So it's a direct giving, but it's not like a direct filling out. Then we've got second party data. This is information that's shared via some kind of generally trusted partner. So it's usually some other company's first party data that just based off of the like privacy policy and things like that of your website, that second or that other company is allowed to share with you. So things like, you know, if you are somebody is buying something from you and you use a payment processor like Stripe, and they give you that data of like this person paid this much for this thing on this day, and we can confirm this, and here's the receipt. That's second-party data, because Stripe is sharing that back with you. And then finally, there's third-party data, which is, this is where a lot of the data privacy concerns fall in, where this is different, generally information that's aggregated from different sources, and then sold via an external provider. So these are like browser cookie information. A lot of demographic data is collected and sold, things like that. That's third-party data. So there's really no consent being given. There's no, there's some privacy concerns.
Where does prospect list fall? If you buy them from somebody else?
That would be really mainly third party, because that your third party is generally your purchased data. Second party is like, as part of your privacy policy, you already have this standing agreement that like this information is going to be shared in this way. What type of data is the most valuable? Just from based off of what we went over here. Does anyone know?
Customer data.
Yeah, zero party and first party data, those are your most important types of data, because this is the data that the customer is either directly giving to you, or that you can just collect because of direct actions that the customer has taken. So that's direct consent. There's no privacy concerns because the customer, to do business with you, is very directly saying, here's my information, I want to make a purchase from you, I want to book a service from you, so on and so forth. Second party data is okay. Indirect consent is generally given. Like generally you're going to have something about like you agree to like us sharing this data with trusted providers in your privacy policy. So most people are not reading that privacy policy. So it's really more of an indirect consent. They understand that there is going to be some level of sharing just by visiting your website and interacting with you. There are some privacy concerns just because, again, people aren't necessarily reading that privacy policy. Some privacy policies are better than others in telling people what data exactly is being shared and why. And then we've got third-party data, which is limited use, especially for email marketing, because there's little to no consent being given. There's sometimes very significant privacy concerns. I don't know, does anyone watch John Oliver here? I don't know if anyone saw the episode where he like purchases demographic information about like potential members of Congress, and then like sends them targeted ads. And people are like opening ads for like smut inside of the Chamber of Congress. That's the type of privacy concerns that we're talking about here. And it can be very dangerous for email marketing, because oftentimes when you're purchasing these lists, especially if you're purchasing emails, you don't necessarily know how clean those lists are. And so you could have a lot of emails that are out of date, that will hard bounce because they no longer exist, that maybe have a very high rate of being reported or of reporting things as spam. And those can be very dangerous for your deliverability statistics. So let's talk about compliance and deliverability. So the first most important thing, this is really the main law that governs email marketing here in the United States. It's called the CAN-SPAM Act. It came out in 2003, so it's very old. And it basically says a few things. This is because back in kind of the Y2K years, there were a lot of, like, spam was a huge issue. There were a lot of people, you guys probably remember, you were probably getting lots of emails from random people, from like giving you dangerous links, telling you all sorts of crazy stuff. And so the CAN-SPAM Act was a response to that, saying the subject line has to accurately describe email contents. You can't just like say something in your subject line and then have the body of your email be something completely different. You have to give people a mechanism to unsubscribe, and it has to be both visible and operable. So if they click it, you have to take them to an unsubscribe page. When someone decides to opt out, that request has to be honored within 10 days, and you legally have to stop emailing them. And then from that point on, those opt-out lists can only be used for compliance purposes. You cannot ever use those lists to retarget to the person. Now, the one exception to this is if somebody clicks unsubscribe, they're part of your opt-out list, and then at some later date, however many days, weeks, months, years in the future, they come back to your website and resubscribe on your website. then they have given you consent again to email them. So if they take that action and say, hey, I want to start receiving these emails again, then you're fine. Just another thing to keep in mind, if your customer base falls outside of the US, if you're emailing people outside of the US, just make sure you're compliant with that country's privacy and consent laws. I know Europe a couple years ago rolled out GDPR, which has its own kind of responsibilities with it. So if you are emailing, especially in Europe, make sure that you're GDPR compliant and you're following those laws as well. So aside from just like what you have to do to not break the law, inbox providers like Yahoo, Google, AOL, they'll oftentimes have their own requirements and their own things that they like to see in order for your email to reach inboxes in the first place. And these are not necessarily a legal thing. These are just these inbox providers protecting their own customers. So many inbox providers have their own requirements, but the most common ones are accurate SPF, which is Sender Policy Framework, and DKIM records. These records are placed within your domain host. And basically what these records do is they just validate and say, actually, yeah, this email address that's sending this email is actually who they say they are, and you should send or be able to deliver this email because this person is who they say they are. So along with that, sending from a branded domain, so like at company.com, at HAYVN.com, at digitalretailpartners.com, inbox providers like to see that over any kind of free domain like at Yahoo or at Gmail, because that branded domain gives you more authority. They like to see a low average bounce and spam and unsubscribe rate because it means that you're not sending to people who don't want to hear from you. And obviously this is a legal compliance thing, but I think it was a year or two ago at this point, Google and Yahoo actually expanded their wanting to have just one visible unsubscribe link to wanting to have two. So having a visible unsubscribe link in at least one place in your email. So all of these factors, they'll all determine what's called your sender authority score, which is like how safe are you, how much are you actually who you say you are, and are you sending content that people want to read or want to see. And that sender authority score will determine whether the email even makes it to an inbox in the first place, which is your deliverability. And then once it lands in the inbox, especially for Google, where in the inbox will it land? Will it go straight to spam? Will it go in the promotions tab? Or will it make it to the actual inbox itself?
Can you tell us what some of the low numbers are? Like, what is a low bounce rate spam compliant and unsubscribe to you?
So generally less than 1%. It varies industry by industry. That's the fun thing about email is that everything varies industry to industry, and whether you're a retail versus a services-based company. But generally for unsubscribe, for spam, they like to see it 0 or as close to 0 as possible. Bounce rate, again, as close to 0 as possible. And then unsubscribe rates just less than 1%, generally less than half a percent is ideal. So on that note, what can I do to ensure good deliverability? So obviously send from a branded domain. Make sure that you have those SPF and DKIM records. Most marketing automation platforms they'll be able to guide you through those steps. It's part of setting up your account to begin with. This is already a legal thing, and most marketing automation platforms will automatically add this to your footer, even if you don't add it yourself. But making sure that there's a visible unsubscribe link. Don't send to purchase lists if you can avoid it, but if, for example, you purchase a prospecting list and you have to, just make sure that that list is clean. And there are services like Zero Bounce and Use Bouncer, which you can upload the list to. You pay like a half a cent or something per contact, and it'll run through that list and tell you if there's any emails that have historically bounced or are toxic or anything like that. And any of those emails that Use Bounce or Zero Bounce returns that are toxic or like use great caution, definitely don't send to those people.
Do you know if that's embedded in HubSpot, or do you have to get that set up?
No, that's an external service. And then finally, once you actually do have your lists, just keep them clean. Don't send to people who haven't interacted with your emails in a really long time, or just send to them in a limited capacity. We'll talk about this more when we get to segmentation. But if somebody is not engaging with your emails, there's no reason to continue sending them emails. Or if they're only engaging with like sale emails, just send them sale emails. Because if you continue to send to people who are not opening your emails, it will hurt in even in some small way, your deliverability and your sender authority score. So if we don't want to purchase lists, what are our data collection strategy? So these are the most common ones. You have web forms, which is what I have here. This is a pop-up that I built for one of our clients. Pretty common to see those pop-ups. Take 10% off your first purchase when you give us your email. That's probably the most common you'll see. You'll also see like subscribe to our email in the footers. That's another very common in the footer of websites, very common one to see. And then just other like contact us forms and stuff like that. There's also, if you're a HubSpot user and you use the chatbot feature or the chat flow feature, there will generally be some kind of consent to process data when someone interacts with your chatbot. Platform integration, so if you use a service like Shopify and you integrate with your marketing automation service so that anybody who makes a purchase in Shopify is pushed into, in this example, Klaviyo, that's another way to legitimately gain subscribers. And then of course there's data upload. So you have a CSV of people that you met at a trade show or something, and they all want to hear from you again. So you upload that into your platform. And then finally there's manual entry, which is just you go into your platform and you type in the email and you type in the person's name and you say this person wants to hear from me and you add them one by one, which is not the fun type to do. When we're talking about like getting past that initial person giving their information stage, there's a couple of different opt-in options that you can give them, and each has their kind of benefits and downfalls. So there's single opt-in and there's double opt-in. Single opt-in tends to be the industry standard, but it does trade integrity for faster list growth. So if we go back to this pop-up, one of the issues with this pop-up is if we have single opt-in turned on, people are going to sign up, they're going to get that welcome email immediately, they're going to use the code, and then they're going to unsubscribe because they don't actually want to hear from you. They just want the code, they want the discount code. So there are always going to be that amount of people, and because single opt-in has less friction than double opt-in, you're gonna get more people like that who are just signing up because they want a discount. So it trades that integrity for faster list growth. It is industry standard because people like to grow their lists very fast, but you do have that trade-off where subscribers are less likely to be engaged on average. Then there's double opt-in, which trades list growth for cleanliness. Basically what double opt-in does is it sends an email that reconfirms consent before marketing. So if we take this pop-up example, if we have double opt-in turned on this, the person enters their information, they hit subscribe, and then before they receive that welcome email with the discount code, they'll receive an email that says, hey, thanks for subscribing. We just want to reconfirm that you want to hear from us. Click this button to reconfirm. Once they hit that button, then they'll be opt-in and then they'll get the welcome email. So it's just a little bit more friction, but for people who are very motivated to just sign up for a welcome discount or something like that, it can be enough to deter them from continuing on in that kind of process. And so when you do get people who double opt-in, who double confirm, they are more likely to be engaged because they've reconfirmed that they actually do want to hear from you. So there's more of a motivation there. Any questions on any of this? Wonderful, okay. So now we've gone through data collection, kind of the basic consent stuff. Let's talk about crafting effective campaigns. So the things that you want to consider when you're crafting an effective campaign, who is your audience? Who are you talking to? How do you talk to them? In terms of like how you're sending stuff, you want to look at designing templates because those allow you to create consistently designed emails faster. Then we want to look at what the actual content of that email is. So what are you telling them? We want to look at segmentation strategies. So are we delivering the right content to the right people at the right time? And then finally, we can look at automating certain processes or automating certain emails, which can take some of the heavy lifting off your plate. And then we'll talk about some core automation types. All right, so using the right tone. So before you even start writing your email, you need to know what tone you're going to be using when marketing to your audience. So these generally will come from your buyer personas and your brand guide. Buyer personas are, I don't think I need to explain these. If you run a company, you have buyer personas. So this is your ideal audience. Who are they? What is their job? How old are they? Where do they work? What pain points or needs do they have? And you should have at least 3. And just based off of who your ideal audience is, that's going to inform your tone. In terms of the brand guide section, generally effective brand guides are going to include a section on writing tone and the brand's voice. And that's going to vary on what, who you're marketing to, who your audience is, as well as what you are selling. So if you are a CPA or an investment firm or something, you're probably going to use more of a passive toned informational style. If I'm selling hair clips on TikTok, I'm probably going to have a warmer, more conversational, casual voice. So all of that will inform your tone. So once we've figured out our tone, we want to make sure that we're designing consistently beautiful emails that feel like they're coming from the same company every time. So in your marketing automation platform, generally there's going to be a brand section, and this allows you to upload your logos, set brand colors, set your branded fonts, and add your social links. And these are for easy retrieval when you're actually in the email editor, going around and adding things in. So this will have all of those assets really easy to access at your fingertips because you've set those up as your kind of account defaults. I'd say create 3 to 5 template variants for different use cases. So this is an example. This is the same company, Roadkill Weaving, that I took that pop-up from. We've got our header. This is like universal content. We've got our footer here. So follow us on social media, all of the buttons of all the things that we want. There's that unsubscribe button. And then you'll notice that a lot of this is just lorem ipsum or like sample text. And this is because you just want that text in there to give you an idea of like what this is gonna look like when you actually fill it out. Because templates are exactly what they sound like, they're templates. They're meant to be just a general guideline or kind of a general vibe of what you want the end product to be or to look like. And you can have different templates for different use cases. So if you're sending like something about a blog that you just posted versus, talking about a new product or a new service that you're launching, the way the design of that email is probably going to look pretty different because one is likely going to be a little bit more image heavy and the other one is probably going to be more just like, here's a quick summary, read the blog that I just posted. And then finally, a lot of platforms will have something called universal content or something similar, saved content, things like that. These are saved sections that you can use across email designs. So even if it's not part of a template, you can select that universal content. You can drag and drop it into your email design, and that will stay the same across email design. So this is really useful, I find, for automated emails, because if you make use of that universal content, when I go into one automated email and I edit, for example, the footer, maybe I add a button or I remove a button from the footer, I can just hit update and then that change will push to every other automated email that I have. So I don't need to go into like 20 emails and make one small change on the footer. So it's very, very useful for that. It saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of hassle. When we talk about the actual content, once we've made our templates and our saved sections and things like that, the main goal of a marketing email is actually to get someone off the marketing email, not because they've clicked out of it back into their inbox, but because they've clicked through somewhere else. So the main goal is to make someone take an action. You want to get them off the email and onto your site. So how do we do that? Make sure you always have a clear purpose. Email should really only have like a primary and maybe a secondary message. Keep it short and sweet. Don't write more copy than you need. Don't write like a whole essay in the email. They can read that essay when they click through to your website. And make sure that you're grabbing attention with interesting subject lines and headlines. Obviously, keeping in mind that the subject line does need to match the actual content of the email. So how we can do that as well is using plenty of images and graphics and GIF, things that grab attention. And then just making sure that anytime you want someone to be able to click through to something, make sure those are bright and easy to access and very obvious. So any links or buttons should be bright and clear. Finally, don't overcrowd your emails. Like even if you want to send a lot of stuff, don't smush it all in there. Make sure you have proper padding and white space around all of the sections. So here I've taken a couple screenshots. This is from a website called Mild, or I took them from a website called Mild, which is really useful. I like Mild a lot. It's a marketing email aggregator. So Mild will subscribe to, in this case, Anthropology and NVIDIA. And they'll just keep a running visual log of every single marketing email that these brands send. And so if you have a particular brand that you like or you want to emulate, you can just go to Mild and you can type in anthropology.com, and then you can see every email design that Anthropology has ever sent. So it's very useful. So these are two different examples. I wanted to pick Anthropology and NVIDIA because they're two completely different companies, right? Anthropology targeted towards like 20 to 30-year-old women, maybe a little older. It's all retail. And then NVIDIA, this is a graphics card manufacturer. So it's a very different, very different audience that they're emailing to. So Anthropology, you've got that bright, attention-grabbing citrus and cerulean. You've got these big images that are very attention-grabbing, and they've got a lot of white space or padding around them. So they're not overcrowding. I do think that Anthropology could make it a little bit more obvious, like the buttons to click through to stuff. This is like the click through section. It's not very clear that that's a button, but overall a very, very fun design, I think. NVIDIA is a little different. This is a newsletter, so completely different purpose. That's why the format's different. It's a computer graphics card manufacturer, so gonna be just a different kind of vibe in general. And this is an aggregation of news that they put out in July. So you've got your featured news here. It's a little different from everything else because it's in gray. And then everything else in white is like, here's some other news. I do think this could be a little less crowded. There's a lot here. There's a lot that they wanted to share. Most people are probably not gonna be scrolling down all the way to the bottom because there's quite a lot going on here. So I think that they could have had a little bit more white space and maybe figured out what's really worth sharing, rather than just kind of putting everything in there at the same time.
Excuse me, give me that link again.
Oh, Mild,
MILLED.
MILLED.com.
Do you find the templates, the email sites have to use are limiting?
So you can build your own template. And that's what I would recommend doing is building your own template that's branded to you and that's set up the way that you like. And you can use a pre-made template to kind of get to that. But I personally like to just create my own custom templates because I find that it's much more useful for the future.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So in terms of different campaign email ideas, we already talked, this is a new product launch here for Anthropology. This is, like I said, this is their July newsletter. So quarterly or monthly newsletter, the cadence depends on how much news you have to share and how much time you have to write it. Sales or promotions, that's another very common one. New item drops, or if you're a services-based company, a new service or a new feature if you're a software platform. Educational or informational content. So if you have a blog and you're writing blog posts, that would be that informational content. And then just any other relevant information pertinent to specific segments. So for example, one of our clients is a CPA firm, an accounting firm. One of the emails they wanted to send recently was just to tax clients, which this is part of segmentation, which we'll get to next. And it's talking very specifically about upcoming tax deadlines. So this is information that's relevant to a particular part of your audience, but might not be relevant to every single person. So when we talk about segmentation, just some statistics for you all here. 25% of people say that they would not purchase from a brand that sends them irrelevant content. So segmentation is really the secret here. Segmentation allows you to customize who you send to, so you can ensure your message reaches the right people at the right time. And we'll see this pie chart again. Some of the common segments that you might see are engaged versus unengaged. So people who are really opening and engaging with your emails versus people who are receiving your emails and not engaging with them at all. Generally, those unengaged are going to be like 30, 60, 90-day segments. New versus returning customers. The types of emails that you send a new customer versus a returning customer are probably going to be a little bit different. This is an automated email this is a luxury stationery brand called Dear Annabelle. This is an email that they get after they purchase 10 times with the company. Number of purchases or length of time as a client or customer, that kind of ties in with that newer returning customers. The type of product or service that they've purchased with you. So if you sell like, human clothes and dog clothes, if they've only ever purchased human clothes from you, you probably aren't going to want to send them anything about dog clothes because they've never indicated any interest in that. And then the date of their last purchase or meeting with you. These are really useful for like win back or rewarming campaigns. And then just other various information about the person, gender, age, location, industry, things like that may or may not be useful to you when sending in segments. So like I said, some segments are more useful for automation or versus campaign emails. So that like number of purchases, generally you're going to be using that for an automation if I had to take a guess, which is what this email comes from. The type of product or service purchased is, I think, for both. Date of last purchase, if you want to do just an automated win-back campaign, that can be very useful. New versus returning customers, that's generally most useful for like a post-purchase bounce-back email saying thanks for your purchase. New customers are probably going to be getting like, here's a little bit more about our company, versus returning customers already know what's going on.
I have an engaged question.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you have your email system set up to preview,
Mm-hmm.
does that count as open?
No, if it hasn't sent yet, then it's not going to count as any kind of open.
I mean, if we send emails to a client, to prospects, and we can see an open rate, does that mean everybody clicked and opened it? Or if they have preview open on their computer, does that get registered back in the metrics as opened?
I'm not quite sure about that. I think it depends on how that preview works on the inbox provider side. I know that there are cases, particularly with Apple Mail, where especially, this is I think more of an SMS thing rather than an email thing, but Apple Mail will like scan content of an email and that can count towards opens, but a service like HubSpot is going to catch that. It's going to say or see that email has been sent to someone with an Apple Mail address, and they'll be able to exclude that. So that's, if you ever looked at the HubSpot email statistics, it'll say like open rate and then open rate excluding bots, or like click rate excluding bots. HubSpot generally can account for that. Mm-hmm.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
What open email and engage? What does engage in the email looks like? They're just giving you information.
So engaging in the email means like taking some kind of action. So clicking somewhere, scheduling a meeting, purchasing something, clicking through to the site. And engagement is like taking an action once they've opened the email. When we talk about an actual like creating a segment, engaged versus unengaged is they're opening these emails or they're taking an action, versus unengaged is like they're receiving these emails and nothing's happening. They're just sitting in the inbox. Okay, so we've mentioned a little bit about automation. I love automations. They make your life really easy. There are certain automations that are pretty industry standard, which we'll talk about in a second. But automations are basically just little logic trees. I like to think of them as logic trees that use specific bits of information to execute tasks for you. So this can be updating a property on the actual person's profile, changing a status, or sending an email. So few things that you need for every automation. You need a trigger. So what action or actions or list membership or piece of personal information make this person eligible to enroll in the automation to begin with? And then is there a subset of people you want to filter out? So this is just this is a built-in Klaviyo here. This is a random automation that I just built as an example. So here's our trigger. The trigger is that people were added to the segment new subscribers. And I do have a couple filters applied here. The only people, even if they're in this segment, if they're not in the United States, they can't enroll. And if their first name is John, they also can't enroll. I don't want to be emailing anyone named John. So that's your profile filters and your trigger. Then consider what actions you want your automation to take. So this can be a single action, this can be multiple actions, this can be sending emails and updating properties. You can do a lot with automation. So in this case, we've got a couple of actions. We've got 2 emails. We've got email 1, which is just, hello, this is an example email. And then 2 days later, we've got following up on my initial email. And then you'll see in this middle here, we've got that kind of split. And so these filters and splits can further refine who gets these subsequent messages. So you can't see it here in this conditional split. Oh, actually, you kind of can. Has opened email 0 times. So if they get that first email, we wait 2 days, we check if they've opened that email, and if they haven't opened that email, then they get a second email, and if they have opened the email, then they don't get anything, because they've opened the email, and that's all I wanted. We also, automations are gonna generally use time delays as well. Service like Klaviyo, you can delay hours, days, or weeks. And you generally wanna have time delays in there, because if you don't, the person is gonna get that initial email on day 0, and then they're gonna just get that second email immediately afterwards, which is not very useful. So make sure that you're adding time delays in there, so people are, if you do create an automation, people are receiving these emails at a cadence that actually makes sense. So some of our core email automations, you got your welcome series. So these are 1 to 3 emails that welcome new subscribers, thanks them for signing up. Generally, they're paired with some kind of promo code or discount or like special deal. This is generally to give them an incentive to actually give their personal information to you. You've got your post-purchase, or I'm trying to speak to services-based people, like post-event or post-session. So just thanking them for coming. Sometimes you might ask for feedback. Messaging will probably vary depending on industry and whether you're a products versus services-based company. Then we've got win-back and rewarming. These are generally 1 to 3 emails. Depending on the situation, these could be sent to someone who hasn't purchased or booked with you in a while, trying to win their business back. Or someone who hasn't engaged with an email in a while, which is that rewarming. You're trying to warm them back up so they'll start opening your emails again. If a person continues to not engage with those emails, even if they haven't explicitly unsubscribed, it is best to just remove them from your email marketing lists, because they're already not doing anything for you, and if you continue sending to them, it could hurt your sender authority score. Some other key automations, just based split retail versus services. You got abandoned cart, browse abandon, cross-sell or upsell. So like, you purchased this thing, we think you'll like this thing, or a review request. And then very similarly for services, any kind of like pre-meeting reminder, any like intake or expectations that you want people to know about. You can cross-sell them on services, and you obviously want them to give you nice reviews on Google. All right, so that's kind of all the campaign messaging and stuff. We're gonna get into the when and where and all that. Any questions before we get into this? Wonderful, okay. So when should I send? I'm gonna be very helpful and tell you that that really depends on your industry and what you're sending. So there's no one answer that there's no like magic pill that I can give you. I can give you some general guidance. Don't send right at 9 a.m. A lot of brands are gonna be sending right at 9 a.m. So people are gonna be logging on to very full inboxes. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when I log on at 9 a.m. and there's like 15 marketing emails in my inbox, I'm like, I don't have time to look at all of these, and I just delete them all at once because nothing is going to catch my attention. There's 15 marketing emails in there. On average, send on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. These tend to see the best open rates, and we'll get into that in a second why that is. And then consider the content of your email, the timeliness of the email. If you have something that's like maybe a sale that's ending in a couple of days, then you might want to send at a specific time if the sale's ending at a specific time, or if there's some kind of deadline there. So here's our little graph. These are just some best practices. This is taken from Twilio. Email newsletters see the best open rates on Tuesdays between 10 and 11 a.m. send time. That's because we've gotten through the post-Monday chaos. We have already gotten through those 30 emails that were sitting in our inbox when we logged on Monday, but we're pre-midweek fatigue. Promotional emails, Tuesday, Wednesday is the best time to send. 9 to 11 or 1 to 3 p.m. These are generally during work breaks or when people are just starting to log on and ramp up for the day. Marketing emails are going to be Wednesday, Thursday between 9 and noon for morning planning sessions, and then just general email blasts Tuesday through Thursday. Monday, again, people are logging on. They might have a ton of backlog to get through, so they're going to be less likely to open your email. And then Friday, people are already winding down for the weekend. They don't necessarily want to think about booking another service or buying another thing unless it's really necessary to them. Welcome emails and abandoned cart. These are both automated, so these can be sent at any time. Welcome emails are always sent immediately because generally, like we talked about with the automation section, welcome emails are saying, hey, thanks for signing up. Here's a promo or here's a discount. Abandoned cart, these are great for if you have a retail business. These are great for trying to win back business that might be lost otherwise. And you want to send generally a couple of emails 1 to 4 hours later to try to win them back before their interest goes elsewhere. So now that we've talked about when you should send, let's talk about how often you should send. So again, going to be really helpful here. It depends. It depends on your audience, it depends on your industry, and it depends on what you're sending. So if you send too many emails, the recipients are going to stop opening and they're likely to unsubscribe. If you send too few emails, people might even forget that they subscribed to you. I know a personal anecdote here. I used Amtrak a year or two ago and received no marketing emails from Amtrak for like a year. And then like a week or two ago, I started randomly receiving emails from Amtrak again. And I was like, I never subscribed to Amtrak. What is this? Clearly I did at some point, but because they weren't sending me anything for a year, I forgot that I subscribed. And because people will forget that they subscribe to you, you have a much more elevated risk of a spam report. So general guidelines, 1 to 2 times a week is best, but I know a lot of people who are small business owners don't have that kind of time to be doing that. So every other week is okay as well. Try not to send more than once a day, with exception for automated emails. And the most important thing is always quality over quantity. So it's better to send fewer informative, beautiful, engaging emails than a ton of slop. So this is another statistic here from MailJet. What are the most common reasons you choose to unsubscribe? And too many messages is at the top there, and that holds pretty standard across surveys from different companies. So on that note of avoiding fatigue, couple strategies you can use. Segmentation, we've already talked about that. Don't send too often, so try not to send more than once a day. Allow the contact to set their preferences. So this is an example of a preferences page that you could use. We've got our subscription preferences here. I want to subscribe to company news, industry insights, new services or releases, sales and promotions, so on and so forth. And then if you ever do any messaging for holidays like Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, these are holidays that people can sometimes be very sensitive to given just personal things in their personal life. Allow your subscribers the option to opt out ahead of time. That's just a nice thing to do, and it's a really easy way to build a little bit of extra goodwill with your subscriber base. So this is that lovely pie chart again. These are some purchasing deal breakers. The question with this chart was what would prevent you from purchasing from a company. We've got 25% saying sending me irrelevant communications, 26%, there we go, sending me communications too frequently. And then we've got contacting me through a channel I don't prefer, feeling like my personal information is insecure, problems, having problems with the company, having to repeat themselves, things like that. But really 50% of that, 51% of that is sending irrelevant communications and sending communications too frequently. Any questions on that? We're going to talk about metrics next. Wonderful. Okay. So let's talk metrics. So there's three kinds of metrics. There's positive metrics, where higher numbers indicate better performance. There's negative metrics, where higher numbers indicate worse performance. And then there's neutral metrics, also sometimes called vanity metrics, where higher numbers don't indicate anything necessarily. So our positive metrics, where we want to see higher numbers, we want to see high open rates, we want to see high click and click to open rates. So click rate is just the number of people who clicked out of the number of all recipients, and then click to open rate is the number of people who clicked to the number of opens. So the click to open rate is always going to be higher than the click rate. And then conversion rate, which is people who not only clicked through to your site, but then made a purchase or booked a service or something like that. And a lot of, especially if you have an integration with your purchasing platform or your service platform, that conversion rate can generally be tracked automatically by your marketing automation platform. With the negative metrics, we've got unsubscribe rate. So people say, stop emailing me. We've got bounce rate, and there's two types of bounces. There's a soft bounce and a hard bounce. The hard bounce is really, really what you don't want. Soft bounces are generally always going to happen to some extent, and that's because they're caused by a temporary delivery failure. So if the inbox is full, or if there's server problems or something like that, that's a soft bounce that's going to resolve itself in the future probably. Hard bounce is a permanent failure to deliver an email. So if you're sending to an email that doesn't exist anymore, it's just completely undeliverable, and that's a hard bounce, and you really want to be avoiding hard bounces. Finally, you've got spam complaint rate. These are people saying, not only do I not want to hear from you, but like, I never signed up for this, and I don't know why you're sending me this, and I did not consent to this, so like, stop emailing me, and also I like want to hurt you. The spam complaint rate is very dangerous, and it hurts domain authority and email deliverability. So you want to keep that spam complaint rate as close to 0 as possible. Finally, we've got our neutral metrics, which is your list size. A lot of people like to see a big list. A big list is not necessarily indicative of anything. Again, it's that quality over quantity notion. The only thing that a bigger list is going to help you achieve is single actions are going to make less of an outsized impact on your averages. So if you have a list of like 325 people and like one person unsubscribes, that's going to be a much higher unsubscribe rate than if you have a list of like 3,000 people and one person unsubscribes. So that's really the only way that having a larger list is really going to help you. So like I said, bigger list is not necessarily a better list. At the end of the day, you want to be emailing people who actually want to hear from you and who actually want to engage with your content. So don't send irrelevant content, don't send to chronically unengaged people, and have a suppression list. So this is a list of people who have said, stop emailing me. Data collection is also not one and done. So because integrity of data decays over time, people will move locations, people's preferences change. We always want to try to have accurate and up-to-date information. You can do that by sending some surveys or update forms. You can re-import previous contacts that maybe have had some updates made to them. And then obviously there's always the choice of manually updating. If you're in your lists and you notice someone and you're like, that's not right, you can always click into them and manually update. Finally, A/B testing. So when you actually send your emails and you have your averages and you're like, I don't love this click rate. I want to try to improve click rate. What can I do to improve this? That's where A/B testing comes in. So A/B testing allows you to test what timing, messaging, or content works best with your audience. Some just general guidelines. You're only going to want to test one variable at a time. So if you are testing, for example, the imagery that you're using, if you want to see like lots of images versus fewer images, how that impacts click rate, you only want to test that. And before you test subject line or content or anything like that, you just want to test imagery. And then once you've got your answers for imagery, then you can move on to send time or subject line or anything like that. But if you test more than one variable at a time, you're not going to get clear results on what variable is, or like what strategy is actually impacting that rate. You want to test each variable several times as well. A single A/B test is not going to be enough to indicate a pattern. You need to have a certain kind of body of evidence before you can say, okay, this is a pattern that suggests that more imagery with water in it is a better, sees better click rates or better conversion rates. So for campaign messages, I'd say at least 4 to 5 sends to A/B test the same thing. And then for automations, I would run the automation for at least once a month, or for at least 1 month. And that's really easy because once you set that A/B test up, that'll just run automatically, and something like HubSpot will automatically pick a winner for you. So that's just a little graphic there, control versus variant. And that is A/B testing. Does anyone have any questions? How are we on time? Oh, 10 minutes.
Actually, I think that's a little slow.
Oh.
12:54, but.
Okay.
Yeah, 54.
Any final questions? Anything anyone wants to know?
Well, how do you get more engagement? How do you get, like, to your initial question? That's the big question, you know, that's on everyone's mind. Do you have any insights?
When you say engagement, do you mean people signing up for your list? Do you mean click-throughs?
Yes. Yeah.
So what do you have on your web? Like, so I think forms are generally the most common way. If you're not, like, somebody's not booking a service with you, and then at the time that they book, they consent to receive marketing communications, that's a really easy way of passively building your list. Forms are going to be your other big thing. I would say have a pop-up or a slide in. Okay, yeah, you can, if you're not seeing good conversion rates with that, you could A/B test that and see if, like, one.
When you say A/B tester, what does that mean?
So you have 2 variants that are running at the same time, and some people are going to get variant A and some people are going to get variant B. And over, let's say you have it running for a month, you have this A/B test going for a month. Over that month, half of the people who come to your website are going to see variant A and half of the people are going to see variant B.
Okay.
And then your marketing automation service will be able to split those 2 out and say variant A saw a conversion rate of 32% and variant B saw a conversion rate of 49%.
This will happen in my Squarespace.
Yes.
That they'll tell me.
I believe so, in your
Okay.
Squarespace. I'm not super familiar with the Squarespace marketing suite, but A/B testing is a pretty standard tool.
Okay, got it.
So based off of that, you'll be able to say, okay, variant B is clearly doing significantly better. I'm going to use variant B, and I can use that to inform my strategy going forward.
Okay.
And it's similar with emails. You send 2 versions of ostensibly the same email. Let's say we're testing send time. You send one in the morning, you send one in the afternoon. You do that 5 times, and afternoon sends, except for maybe one send, on average see a consistently higher open rate. Afternoons are a better time to send.
Gotcha.
So you can A/B test and figure that out. And then there's obviously, there are like industry or service specific guidelines that you can Google. MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot, they're all going to have blogs with general guidelines.
She says variant, that's really important. So
Okay.
when I think about it, I think about, if they don't open the damn email, then all of the best creative and offers and sales in the world don't matter.
Yeah.
So if I were you, I would A/B test the variant of subject line first. Just try to get as many people to open it as you can.
Okay.
That would be the first step, because then you have that many more people cascading through the funnel.
Yeah.
And speaking of subject lines, are you familiar with subjectline.com?
I'm not, actually.
It's a pretty cool website where you can type in a subject line and it'll rate it. You know,
Very cool.
What you want to be, and it'll tell you too long, too negative, it doesn't have any sense of urgency, and you can keep plugging it in. It's free until you get a score of 100.
Awesome.
But I don't know how legit it is.
Yeah. I think it's always subjective.
I think now it's got AI in it, so it probably is, and it has
That's interesting.
data from, millions of emails that predict that. So
Yeah, and to that point as well, I'm not super familiar with Squarespace, or I have limited knowledge in MailChimp, but as platforms roll out AI tools. HubSpot and Klaviyo both have like a subject AI subject line creator where you'll like type in your subject line and it'll say this is too long. We recommend, if you go over 60 characters, your subject line is going to get cut off. And then Klaviyo is very cool. You put in the subject line and then it like automatically drops down like 5 different variants that might be more engaging that you can choose from. So as AI tools continue to be rolled out, you'll probably see more of those being natively integrated within the actual platform itself. But that is very cool. I'll have to take a look at subjectline.com. Any other questions?
I'm gonna take all the questions if you guys don't have.
I just wanted to know, why do you prefer HubSpot there, like some reason?
So I personally love HubSpot's UI. I think that they're, in terms of being like a fully integrated ecosystem with CRM and services and marketing automation and stuff like that, I think, in my opinion, they're doing what they do the best, and with the best UI and the best customer service. I genuinely love HubSpot. I don't think it's necessarily the best solution for everyone because HubSpot is quite expensive. And there are a lot of tools in HubSpot that you might end up having to pay for because you want a different tool that's not, you're never going to use it or it's not the right fit for you. So I love HubSpot and we are HubSpot partners, but I do recognize it's not the best solution for everyone, and especially because of that price point, it can be prohibitive for small businesses. So they've switched to a per seat pricing model, and the charging depends on what level. They've got different levels of hubs. So they'll get you because you can start free, and then you can get starter, which is like, I think Marketing Hub starter is like $25 a month or something like that. But it kind of hamstrings you with a lot of really useful features that if you went with something like Klaviyo, you would get included with $25 to $45 a month. And then you would be forced to go to Marketing Hub Pro, which that's like $190 per seat per month. So it's a massive jump just to get, like, they're useful features, but for a small business, it's not necessarily the right solution.
Right, the other one, unless you have another one, is how do you deal with people like me who have my primary email address and the email address I would give some of those newsletters that I might really never look at because I want to get the 10%. Mm-hmm. Is there any way to do like a merge purge and find out one of your customers' primary email address that they use the most?
You could use an AI service for that potentially. I haven't done too much in that sphere. I think once you actually have the email itself, just general rules of segmentation, if they're not engaging, even if they haven't unsubscribed, just stop sending to them. Yeah. And that can help you. I know with HubSpot, you pay for a certain amount of marketing contacts. So that'll help keep you under that marketing contact threshold. But I think the other option is to say, like, I know their first name, I know their last name, here's an email address. It's not Seamless. I'm trying to think of one of the AI platforms that I've had experience with. They'll be able to scrape the internet for the rest of that information.
It's called Instantly.
There's a few of them. There's a few of them. With that, I would just caution you because that would technically be buying third-party data, and they've subscribed to you with one email address, but not necessarily the other. And so they could end up reporting you as spam if you start emailing to their personal address because they didn't actually want to start receiving emails from you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Wonderful. Okay. Well, I'm going to stick around for like 30 minutes. So if you do end up thinking of something or you want to know more about something, I'll be here. Don't hesitate to come up and ask.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you so much.
Yeah.